sitting outside Sandy Park Rugby Club in Exeter. So here's me outside because all the stairways were taken up by other people doing meetings. Right, so here we go. I think good to start now. Quick introduction to myself. I am Jane Johnston. I'm co-CEO of AphA. Welcome to our Lunch and Learn session for today, which is going to be presented to you by Charlotte Shearsby, who's a Principal Information Analyst at NHS Arden and Gem CSU. She's also, actually, in addition to that, part of or lead of the Healthcare Tableau User Group, UK Healthcare Tableau User Group. So she's a Tableau expert, and she's doing a session today on an introduction to data visualization. Just to quickly also remind you all of the next Lunch and Learn in a fortnight's time on the 8th of July, which is Matt Oakes doing one on FDP. However, I think we might be a little bit booked up on that. So there'll be another one. It will be repeated on the 19th of August. And then we also have a session on the 16th of July, which is a Wednesday, a little bit different, because that's the days that Philippe from FDP, Facts and Dimensions, Facts and Dimensions tables will be doing a session for us. Details for those events are obviously on the AphA website. So I will pass you back to Charlotte now, who will take over the session. I'll go on silent and turn off my camera. So just a reminder, everyone, if you could mute yourselves for the duration of the session, and then the recording will be available on the website for you afterwards. Right, Charlotte, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you, Jane and Lucy, for having me. I'll just share my screen. Hopefully you can see that. I'll just get my notes screen up. So hopefully you can see that. Hello, welcome. This is an introduction to data visualization, emphasis on introduction. I saw what a lot of you were sort of perhaps expecting or wanting out of this session, and might not meet everybody's needs, but it is a broad introduction. But if we can, happy to answer questions offline, help offline, and possibly do more sessions in the future if you need them. So who am I? Hello, I'm Charlotte. I work for NHS Arden and Gem CSU, and I'm a data visualizer. I've been working for the NHS since 2008 and visualizing for probably about 10 years. Just kind of fell into it, discovered I really liked it and made it my vocation in life. So there's just a little bit about me. So what is data visualization? Data visualization is the maximum insight for the greatest number of people with the least amount of effort. And I'm going to show you a few examples now of what that might mean. So here are the some Olympic pictograms from Tokyo 2020, and we all know every time the Olympics come out we get these little icons that depict each sport, and the idea of these pictograms is, again, you know, the speed to insight, so that we very quickly understand, regardless of a language barrier, what each sport is we're about to see. So that's looking at speed to insight. We also have another example here, but from Paul Meixenaar of Schiphol Airport. These are the Amsterdam icons. They were created in 1990 as wayfaring icons for the airport in Schiphol. The main reason for these, again, was they had to transcend language barriers, make it very simple and easy for people to understand. So we've got that speed to insight there. And you'll notice that a lot of these now are just commonplace in workplaces, particularly, you know, the fire safety icons. So these were all created for an airport and are now widely used throughout the world. Here we have the example of the London Underground map. This was created in 1931 by Harry Beck, is still used today, and became the template for transportation maps worldwide. When Beck was creating his underground map, he quickly realised that the geographic points or points of interest, the above ground data, didn't necessarily wasn't really relevant for the travellers. So he stripped all that away and just looked at the lines, about where the lines went, making it for a really, well, yeah, it's an easy map to read, maybe a bit more complicated these days as we've added more and more to it, but it's still a pretty intuitive, pretty easy map to use. And again, it's used worldwide, so it is intuitive in, you know, whatever country you go to. If you see a map like this, you kind of know it's a transportation map. So just a really great example of visualizing quite complex information there, very simply. This next example, you might think I've lost my mind a little bit, but please bear with me. These are the Chevet cave paintings. They're 32,000 years old and they were discovered in 1994. They're the oldest example found of cave paintings. What I want to highlight here is perhaps, you know, we don't know, we never can know why, you know, people painted on their caves years ago, but what if it was like a primordial form of data visualization? What if the person that made these paintings was trying to tell you that they had 4 horses? You can see some other animals here depicted, and you can also see these 2 fighting sort of rhinoceros creatures at the bottom. So maybe they're trying to warn of danger outside the cave. So again, they're just trying to distill information into pictorial form. And you know, they might just have been drawing 4 nice horses because they liked horses. We don't know. But imagine if it was actually as a form of communication. Next, we get on to what we might consider to be more traditional data visualization. This is one of the earliest examples of data visualization as we perhaps recognise it as today. This is a chart by William Playfair from 1786, showing imports and exports from the UK to Denmark and Norway. So there's some examples of what data visualization could be. And now I'm going to go on to look at why do we visualize data? And the simple answer to that is because it makes sense to. Our brains process visuals 60,000 times faster than text, and we can get to the visual sense of a scene in less than 1/10 of a second. So here's a little example. Which do you think is easier to understand, this text or this picture? I'm guessing that you got to pirate ship a lot quicker with the image than you did with the text. So yeah, it's just much easier to understand in visual form. Our brains just process it so much more easy. Here's a little example of something perhaps health related. This is all just fake data. So this is spend by department. And I'd like you just to tell me, please, what's the second highest spend? If anybody, you don't have to write it out, just, you know, think in your minds, just looking through that bit of data. What's the second highest spend? And you might be sifting through all those numbers, trying to figure it out, but how much easier is it if I give you this chart? And we can see there that maternity is the second highest spend. So looking at the 2 next to each other, you know, much easier. Would you have looked down that list and thought maternity was the second highest spend? Probably not. It would have taken you probably a little bit longer to figure that out. So now I've shown you the importance of visualizing data. Let's talk about how we visualize data. So I'm going to talk in this section about choosing appropriate charts, eliminating clutter, learning to love white space, thinking about pre-attentive attributes, the aesthetics, and storytelling. So first of all, we'll start with choosing an appropriate visual display. So there's lots of different chart types that we can choose from, and I'm going to run through some of the most common and what their best uses are. So I'll start off with a line chart, a simple line chart. Line charts are best for conveying data over time. So if you've got any you know, looking at, you know, monthly data or anything, much better to see trends over time with a line chart. A bar chart is fantastic for showing categorical data. So really easy to show, compare and contrast different categories. Pie charts, well, pie charts are a bit of a controversy in the data viz world. You either love them or loathe them. Most people loathe them. I'm here to try and change your mind a little bit, to start to love a pie chart, but I will ask you to use pie charts appropriately. So here is a nice pie chart. Why do I say use it appropriately? Pie charts are really best for data that's got 2 to 3 categories. And that's because when we look at a pie chart, we tend to intuitively read from 12 o'clock. So looking at the 12 o'clock and we go round and we figure out, oh, that's half. We come round from the 12 o'clock again and round to a quarter, and we can discern that this third part is a quarter also. If we start to add more categories to our pie chart, it becomes much, much harder to read. So again, we can see from our 12 o'clock position coming round, we can understand that segment and we can understand this segment, but it gets a little bit harder to start to understand these segments in the middle. And that's where it's just looking at the speed to insight here, without having any kind of additional annotations on this. And I would say even with additional annotations, still to avoid it. It just becomes much harder to read, basically. When you're looking at something that's got more categories than 4, I would go to use a bar or a column chart. Is a much more appropriate visual to use. The same can be said for your stacked bar chart. Again, it's very easy to read from 0 up or from 100 down, but much harder to start to look at these, understand these in the middle. And harder to compare as well. It's harder to sort of see, you know, is that bigger than that, bigger than that? They kind of all look the same size, but it's still a little bit harder to read. There's been a lot written about stacked bar charts. I recommend looking up Steve Wexler. He's written a lot about stacked bars, if you want advice about those. If there's quite a lot of resources on the internet that will help you choose charts. The first one I'd like to recommend is Cole Affleck's Storytelling with Data. Her chart guide gives nice use cases and nice examples. The next is Andy Krubel's Visual Vocabulary. And if you're a Tableau user, this is all built into a Tableau workbook. Not only does he give you the use cases for each chart, but he also, you can work out how to build them as well if you're a Tableau user. And the next one is Aurélien Voltaire's Data Viz Clarity. And he has lots of these sort of infographics, I suppose, that kind of show sort of how you think through how you want to visualize something, so how your thinking process. So they're very good also. Moving on next to talk about clutter. So we experience cognitive load anytime we take in information. It's the mental effort that's required for our brain to learn new information, and we need to be smart about how much cognitive load we put on our audience. But perhaps more importantly, we need to consider our audience's perceived cognitive load. And that kind of means, like, whenever you've looked at something and decided that it's just too hard before you've even really taken in the information. And we need to be really careful not to overwhelm the audience. So we need to keep things simple, neat, and free from unnecessary clutter. When it comes to charts, have a clear title, avoid duplication, remove or fade the grid lines, and use labels or the axes. You don't need both. That goes into some data redundancy. We need to get more comfortable with white space. When we speak and we add a pause for dramatic effect, it adds weight to what we're saying, and used strategically, white space on the page is your dramatic pause. To show you an example here, this is we've got an example on the left that's showing a lot of text in there. The spacing between the lines is really rammed together, and it's just not easy particularly to look at, whereas the image on the right, sorry, it's brought in from the edges, the line is spaced out a little bit more, the text still, I think the text is the same size, but it's just a little bit more easy on the eye, and you're more readily, I think, accepting to read it. So yeah, remember your white space, give your visuals breathing room. Next, I'd like to talk to you about pre-attentive attributes. And these are the things that we notice subconsciously that work to grab our attention, so they can direct attention and also help provide a visual hierarchy. Here's a little exercise I'd like you to do. I'd like you just to count the 3s in this this grid of numbers, and that's it. That's all the time I'm going to give you. How many 3s did you count? Again, you don't need to shout it out, put it in the comments, just think in your own brain. How easy was it to sift through the numbers to find the 3s? So I'm going to give you another chance at it, but I'm going to make one change. So how many threes do you count now? And I'm guessing that you've got to 6 threes, and that's because I've used a pre-attentive attribute on this grid, and that's intensity of color. So just bringing those threes slightly off the page just helps you see them much more clearly. And here's some other examples of pre-attentive attributes that we use. If you want to know more about pre-attentive attributes, please look up Stephen Few. He's sort of the king of pre-attentive attributes. So we've got lots of different ways of drawing attention and creating a visual hierarchy. So they can be size, width, shape. What I used was color hue. You can use color intensity. Lots of different ways to draw out pre-attentive attributes and get people to look where you want them to look and to create a nice visual hierarchy. Next is, do we need to make our visualizations look pretty? And I would say absolutely yes, we do. It's sort of a well-known fact that we tend to be drawn to things that look good and discard and distrust things that don't look good. So especially, when we're trying to, we're working with highly sensitive data, we want people to trust that we're getting it right. And if you've got a cluttered, misaligned dashboard, people are less likely to trust that than if you've got a nice, neat looking presentation of data. So some tips here are to be smart with color, use it intentionally, sparingly and strategically. So, your dashboards don't have to be a rainbow. Just use, pick colors that complement each other, pick colors, use color to highlight a specific point. What I like to do, I tend to like to use a lot of gray, and then a specific color where I want people to pay attention to. So if I'm doing looking at actuals versus plan, for example, I might put my actuals in a nice bright NHS blue color and put my plan to the back in a grey color, because the plan is there. The plan's important and I still want to show it, but it's actually, I want you to pay more attention to the actuals, and the plan is just in the back there for context. Pay attention to alignment. Again, you don't want sort of jaggy, everything all over the place. Keep it nice, neat. Leverage your white space. I've already tried to impose upon you the importance of white space, and pay attention to your fonts. Now that's a really good one. So I'm going to come back to my example here. The reason why you found this so hard to perhaps pick out the second highest spend is because I've been really cheeky and used a terrible font. So our eyes, as I said, we get to the visual 60,000 times faster than we get to the than we read text, and that's what we've done here. We've gone through this and we've looked at how big these are. We've looked at the shape of the numbers before we've actually read the numbers. So we immediately go to gastroenterology and think that's the largest number because it comes out the highest. Then maybe, followed by these ones. And these ones, rheumatology and maternity, they must be the smallest numbers because they take up the least amount of room. So that's a trick of the brain. But actually, when we look at these numbers and use a more appropriate font, we can see actually the maternity figure is bigger, both taking up space and in the actual figure is bigger, and that's because different fonts have different tracking or letter spacing. So when it comes to displaying numbers, we need to really pay attention to that. And usually, whatever product you're using, whether that's Excel, Tableau, Power BI, any of those products, whatever their default font is usually the best one to use for setting up for displaying your numbers correctly, because they've done all the hard work for you in figuring that out. Next is storytelling. It's so important to try and tell a story. We love a story. We're told stories from when we're infants, and we love stories as we grow up into adults, and it's just a really easy way to consume information. We can tell that story even if we're just telling a story, doing some, contract analysis. You might not think there's a story there, but you can tell the story. First of all, I want you to look at this big picture, and now we're going to go into the nitty-gritty of it, and now I'm going to tell you what I want you to do about it. You can still have a story structure even if you don't necessarily think there's a story to tell. So here are some examples that I want to show you of storytelling, and just using great examples really in data. So this is a visualization on measles by Lindsay Betzendahl. She's American. She works in healthcare in America. And what I really want to show you about this dashboard is her use of storytelling and how she's blocked it out. So you see she's used these banners across the side. So you've got history, you've got the outbreaks, global impact, and a call to action at the bottom. So this is really classic storytelling. She's told you, she's set the context at the stop. Sorry, I don't want it to go on to my next slide. There we go. She's set the context at the top with the history of it. She's then gone down and told you what's happening now. She's given you a bit of information about where things are globally, and then she's put a call to action in the bottom of get vaccinated. And what she's done here, you know, there's nice white space used, everything is separated out. She's used these really nice little dotted lines to help also separate out the different sections. And it's just a really nice example of storytelling with health data. And it's always really important, I feel, to give a call to action at the end of your dashboards. What do you want people to do with this information that you've given them? You know, it's the so what question that perhaps comes after analysis. The next example is by Eric Baelish from Lovelytics, and this is an example of a patient portal dashboard. So again, we're looking at the nice use of white space. In this case, you know, the grey around it. He's enclosed. The theory of enclosure is another pre-attentive attribute. So he's enclosed certain information. So he's enclosed all of this information about the patient here. And then on the right side, he's then used the theory of enclosure so that you can create a visual hierarchy. So first, let's look at the visitation history. And we can see here the different visitations they've got, and then it dives down slightly to more information, looking at the condition history, and slightly more information again going down into the procedure history. So it follows a clear hierarchy and helps the reader to understand how this dashboard is supposed to be read and how the data is supposed to be consumed. My next example is a help desk example. So not everybody in the NHS visualises health data. We've got lots of other departments working, including perhaps IT departments and things like that. So this is an example of that. Here we've got these lovely little band tiles at the top, and this is using a lovely band tile. BAN stands for big aggregated number. So this is just giving a snapshot of now. With these lovely little line charts by the side. Again, the historic data there is kept in grey because it's there to help inform, with the current value just popping out in that colour there, and a little bit more information, all contextualising this big number here. So this is a really great way just to get across information quickly. The line chart is just there showing the shape of the data. You don't necessarily need to know all the numbers, you just need to know the pattern that it's making. So you've got these lovely bands across the top. Here we've got a little ring chart here, similar to a donut or a pie chart. Again, look, but she's only put 2 categories on it. That's why this works, because you can read from 12 o'clock in both directions and understand, without looking at these figures, what those figures might be. And again, really nice use here of some bar charts here. Looking, the grey is the open tickets, you know, the total tickets that they've got, and then just filling it up a little bit of the stack bar, just trying to fill up. So how close you are to your target is a really nice way of doing things. And then you've got a little look at down here, which is a really nice way, visual way of visualizing satisfaction. Next, I want to show you is some KPI designs. The NHS loves a KPI, don't we? So here are 18 in fact KPI designs that Andy Kriebel created for the UK Healthcare Tableau user group in October last year, and this is available. You can go and have a look at it. You can also go back and watch the recording of this session if you like, but just some really nice ideas for KPI tiles, all different ideas. So again, we're using that big angry number, that ban number up there with some contextual information. This is the one that I use most when I'm creating these sort of things. I like to put my big angry number, a little bit of contextual as to, you know, what it was in a previous period, has it gone up or down, and then I use my little spark lines down here. So again, he's using a pre-attentive attribute of color here, and intensity of hue. So the black line is showing current. This is what I want you to look at, with that grey just faded into the background because it's still important, it's still contextual, but it's not the main story that I want you to look at. So yeah, some just really lovely examples of how to visualize KPIs. Next, coming way out of the NHS now, I just wanted to show you this. It's by Will Sutton, The Age of Olympians. So what I want to show here, so you've got this these grid visuals here, and these might be a bit overwhelming at first if it weren't for this explainer chart at the top. So if you're doing a visualization where you're going to repeat a chart multiple times, what we don't want is those charts to become clutter, and we want to avoid data redundancy. So what you've got up here is a nice summary chart showing all disciplines. And it also is the explainer chart as well. So it explains that purple is female and the sort of teal green is male. So we don't need that information on all of these tiles anymore. It gives us on the tiles, it just gives us the bottom figure and the higher figure, which is all you really need here, because that's all you're looking at is the range here, and it just giving you a nice idea of the range. So yeah, just a really nice example of how to use an explainer chart there. My next two examples are a little bit emotive, and I'll just stop it before we start. So these are my next two examples are from data journalism. So these are from newspapers. This one is from the New York Times by Georgia Lupi, and she's visualizing her own personal story of long COVID. So I'll just let the video play. And obviously I don't expect us to be doing this kind of visualization, but it's just, you know, another idea of visualizing health data. And again, this is storytelling. This is how to like really make that emotional connection with the audience. So we'll just go through it. So she uses these paint strokes throughout the article. She explains some of it, and then she's using the paint strokes, and again she's using and just go back. What I really like here is how she's within the article, she's brushed over the different symptoms, and this becomes the legend for what we're looking at here. So that's a really just nice use. Again, you don't need the legend always. You can put the legend within your text or within your title. That's a really cool thing. And this is a really emotive thing. These are all of her tests, and just the fact that they're being piled and piled and piled on top of each other, the overwhelm just really comes through there, which is really brilliant. And again, you know, she's used the pain, highlighted that in the text to go through it. She's explaining it, and this is another wonderful thing. Again, the paint strokes of her symptoms coming all over her body, and they gradually just start to envelop the body, and just you can just get the sense of how overwhelming this illness was for her, just because it's completely covering, it's completely gone outside of the body, it's all encompassing. And she keeps scrolling down. You see, this is how she's collected all her data. So she collected all this data herself in this massive Excel spreadsheet, which I find absolutely crazy. The devotion that she must have had to this project, my goodness. And then you come down to the bottom, and it slowly, as the text comes on, more things are highlighted on the right pane, to show how she's sort of built up this visualization. And this visualization, by the way, it's this is the interactive visualization that's available on the New York Times website. There was actually a print version that was printed in the physical copy of the New York Times. So this, you know, even though this looks very interactive and very jazzy like that, it was printed. So you can sort of have the best of both worlds, and obviously, you know, you know, she had a team helping her with this, you know, a team of designers, and then we can see how she's in this master visualization of all of it. She's, you know, calling out little particular points in time to sort of explain what this was and where this was, and significant points in time that were significant to her health journey here. I'll just be quiet for a moment and let you watch it. So that's the end of it. This one just this next one is by, oh, it's got the wrong notes on it. So this was for the Washington oh, I can't remember the name of it. The Washington Post. That's it. This was for the Washington Post, and it is about COVID deaths. It shows it's a really nice thought-provoking visualization that shows when America got to 1 million COVID deaths. So I'm going to play it, and I'll talk through certain bits of it as we go. So it's based on people's last words or people's last wishes, and the piece is called Cut Short. Each one of these, let me pause it. Each one of these lines represents a week, and it goes over. So this was, you know, 5,786 deaths that week, and we could see, you know, these sentences are almost used as bar charts, so they get cut off at a certain point. So that's what they're trying to say, and you can read the whole sentence. I think in a minute I'll hover over it, and you'll see it when they're recording. But you can read the whole sentence of what these people were wanting and saying. And I also want to highlight, you can see just at the bottom this running total, as it is just sort of as the page is scrolling down. Yeah, as the page scrolls down, you can see the running total of this coming to the, and again, you've got your explainer on the very first sentence that helps you to understand the rest of the sentences and what they mean. But it's just really connecting the people to the disease here, and it's so real and so emotive. And I just thought it was a really, really beautiful way to visualize such a horrific, tragic moment in our lives. I'll just let it play through again. That concludes my presentation to you. I hope that you enjoyed it. I hope that it's prompted questions. I hope that it's prompted ideas and inspiration. And if you want to ask any questions, I'll close the slideshow down in a moment and we can ask questions. As was said at the beginning, I am the co-lead of the UK Healthcare Tableau user group. We've got a meeting on the 8th of July We're doing them monthly now. We've got John Hawkins from Tableau coming to speak to us. So if you want to pop along to that, I'll put the link in the chat. Otherwise, if you want to get in touch with me, the best way to find me is on LinkedIn, just Charlotte Shearsby on LinkedIn. So please connect if you want to continue the conversations outside of this. And I will stop sharing and stop sharing. There we go. And come back to the meeting. Thank you for listening. I think you're on mute, Jane. You're muted.
I'm on mute. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, so many different ways of visualization there that I hadn't seen before, actually. So I'm sure we've all at some point watched presentations on visualization, but there was some stuff there that I hadn't seen. Somebody's asked if the slides will be shared, and yes, they will. So I can't actually see the chat. Are you able to see what questions there?
I can.
Maybe
there aren't any questions. If you've got any questions, please, let me know.
Okay. While you're thinking about questions, as Charlotte said, she is head of the Tableau user group. She's also offered to do an intro to Power BI for us, or a Tableau session. It'd be interesting if anybody is interested in either of those, if you could just comment in the chat, and we can gauge numbers and what's more popular, Tableau or Power BI or both, or Power BI. Whoa, oh, it's all flashing up on my screen. Both Power BI, both. So I think Tableau. Okay, so I think definitely there is a desire to see some more sessions from you, Charlotte, on both Power BI and Tableau. If anybody wants to know more about Tableau, you could always contact Charlotte directly to find out more about the user group and how to be part of that. Power BI, okay. Right, we'll get on to that. We'll work with Charlotte to figure out some dates from when we can have her back to do some more sessions for us on more specifics.
I could also do a deeper dive into data visualization practice as well. I've seen a comment from Jagat, I hope I said that right, of showing some more examples of different chart types and things.
Okay, so we'll go through the chat afterwards and figure out some dates with you, and then everybody, obviously the recording will be available from this session on the website, and then just watch out for the newsletters and the magazine to find out about the sessions that become available. So I can't see the chat. When I'm on the phone, when somebody puts a question, it flashes up on the screen, but I can't actually go in and look. I probably could if I was technical enough, but for some reason my phone's beyond me. So are there any more comments, or you can put on your mic and ask a question? No more?
It's fine. Okay. There was a lot of information condensed into that time. But if you want to talk to me offline, happy to. If you feel like your team would benefit from this, happy to come and talk to your team. And yeah, we'll see you again for future sessions. Okay,
thank you, Charlotte. So as Charlotte says, contact her directly if you want something more bespoke for your team, if you want to find out more about the Tableau user group. But in the meantime, we'll go through the chat and see what the appetite is for the Power BI. Well, I think we know the appetite is there. So we'll talk to Charlotte and arrange some more sessions. So if nobody else wants to jump in with any more questions, then you can have some time back to go and enjoy your lunch. And yeah, and we'll share the slides.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you very